everybody. We are at 5:15. I will call to order this regular meeting of the Monroe County Solid Waste Management District Citizens Advisory Committee. It's the third Thursday of April, the 21st, 2022. We're at 5:15. In the absence of our vice chair, will the secretary be available to call roll?
Yes. Hold on just a moment before we start. I want to make sure I get the new members.
Make sure you're speaking into a mic so that the catch recording will pick it up.
Ryan, what's your last name? Edwards. Perfect. All right, so attendance for the meeting. We have Linnea,
Here.
Cox, Kleinlein here, Arnold, Conway,
Here.
Lucas,
Here.
Manley,
Here.
Edwards, here, Greenberg,
Here.
Schaefer,
Here.
White, Wilder. All right.
Hi. Is that everyone? Actually, would you mind recalling White just for attendance purposes?
White,
Here.
All right. And that is everyone on the list. And we do have a quorum. So thank you, everyone, for making it. It's good to see a full house in person for the first time. Let's go ahead and get started with the adoption of the agenda, which was distributed via email this past Tuesday, the 19th, uploaded to Dropbox today, and is shown in the screen share. Are there any objections to adopting the agenda as distributed? Seeing none, that is adopted. And we will go on to approval of the meeting minutes, which are for the February 17th regular meeting. They're included in the packet for this month's meeting and last month's as well. Are there any corrections to the minutes as distributed? Seeing none, those minutes are approved. And that will bring us on to reports, starting with the district, if you would, Tom.
Yeah, a few things for those that weren't in attendance or aren't aware. At the last week at the board meeting, the board did approve entering into the memorandum of understanding with CBU regarding the resource recovery facility proposal, the anaerobic digester study. So that's been signed by the district representatives and sent back to CBU, and is supposed to be presented to the Utility Service Board on Monday. And anticipate that they would approve that. Don't know why they would turn down money. So to anticipate that will happen and move forward. Some other things that I know at the joint meeting, we had some discussion on on apartment recycling, and that is still something that the district is looking at. Mr. Manley did bring up a good idea of looking at something that would possibly be a portable unit that the district could purchase or lease or acquire, and run a schedule around the various areas of town where apartment residents would have access to that and be able to do recycling that way. So there's another idea to consider. It's unfortunately not been the fastest moving process, but we are still that is still something that we want to try and find a way to make happen. And we are also moving forward with establishing a program to accept waste tires at our South Walnut facility, getting pricing in from the potential tire recyclers and transporters that could service that program. So once we do some price comparisons and look at identifying a vendor to use, we would have to look at what kind of a fee cost the district would charge to residents bringing tires in to help cover the cost of that program, and then have the board adjust the fee resolution to add those fees into it. And then once that is done, we should be able to start accepting tires, but probably still going to be a couple of months to get through those processes and get that done. But it is happening. Let's see. I know you've got some other things on the agenda, so I'm not going to try not to jump ahead on some of that other stuff. And then I guess for anybody that here that may have ordered, that might be watching at home, that ordered the compost bins and rain barrels that we were doing. We have had a transportation delay on those. Those were supposed to be delivered today. The truck got delayed. They're not going to be delivered till tomorrow morning. So the Friday pickup, Ms. Procral was going to send notice out to the people that had ordered this afternoon. We're going to have to push the Friday pickup back to start at noon or 1 p.m. So we can get that truck unloaded in the morning and get the items to be picked up at South Walnut, set up there, and get the rest over to Rural King to the other pickup point. So I think that's probably what I have at this point. It's not later on the agenda.
All right. Thank you, Tom. Are there any questions on that report? All right. Seeing none, I'll go ahead and go to the chair report, which isn't much. Mostly just want to welcome our two new members, Mason Greenberg and Ryan Edwards. Following the report, if you want to take a moment to say hello and introduce yourselves, you can have that opportunity. The only other thing that I wanted to mention was more of a reminder than a report, particularly because we have new members. And that is that in terms of the operation of the CAC with respect to the agenda, the chair's responsibility is really only to organize the agenda, and all members at all time have the ability to contribute ideas that they want to have added to the agenda. And there's even an opportunity at the start of every meeting when we propose, the agenda as distributed, you can always make adjustments or suggestions there at that time too. So similarly, the chair's role is really just to facilitate the meeting. So really, it's up to all of the members to bring forward what they have to say, and it doesn't necessarily have to be on the chair's cue. It's just the chair's job to manage how that gets exchanged. So be free to contribute when you have thoughts to express. So that is all I wanted to mention as the chair. And if either of you wanted to say anything, you're welcome to now. Otherwise, we can keep cruising into the meeting.
No, I didn't really have anything prepared. My husband and I have been in the community for about 5 years now, and completing my time at the university here, we bought a house and we're settling down in the community. So this is a great way to really actually be part of what's going on in Wilmington, and just grateful to be part of this committee. So thank you very much for welcoming me.
Absolutely. Thanks.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. I just want to give a disclaimer. I am hearing impaired and I can barely understand what anyone's saying. I understand we have mics, but please enunciate a little bit. My background is mostly in agriculture. I have a lot of experience with just outdoor engagement in general. Specifically, I grew up in Scouts, so I have a lot of experience with community engagement from that, as well as most recent, I was working with university as an engagement director. And I'm in school at IU in the grad program for the MPA MSES program. I'm focusing in conservation and water resource management. I actually met Andrew in a soil science class. That's how I'm here right now. I'm grateful to be here. I'm really excited to get some experience and just be in this kind of setting. It's very relevant to what I want to be doing. So thanks for letting me be here.
Absolutely. Good to have you both. I'll see if I can talk also with IT afterwards. I know the audio in here is generally hard to hear, just categorically. So we'll see if there's any improvements that can be made.
That's ironic. This is a hearing.
So that concludes our reports, and we can go on. We don't have any special committees this month or special orders, but we do have some general orders carried over from last month's meeting. The first of which was signatures for the 2022-02 resolution. Did we get those wrapped up? I believe there was only 1 or 2 members
I don't think that we did, and that's probably on me. I think that I had said that I would contact those members whose signatures that I needed, and I forgot to do that, so we will.
I did send out that message. I just don't know. I didn't get any responses indicating if there were signatures completed. So, yes. Okay. So maybe, yeah, I can follow up with you later, Tom, if you want to just check the hard copy.
Yeah.
Right. And then the other item we had that we weren't able to address last month was the September 15th CAC general meeting has a room conflict where this will be reserved for other purposes. So we can either find a different room, I presume, or reschedule the meeting.
Yeah, the options would be to find another room or schedule for another day when this room would be available. You know, the caveat with that is, and the unknown is, I'm not real sure with regard to in-person, hybrid, virtual, where we'll be in September. And there are limited rooms available at this time that are capable of doing a hybrid meeting. So that this is something to consider. It's certainly, if the group is prepared to, you know, to reschedule or find another room, we can certainly make that happen. Just, you know, be prepared that it may yet require a change again, depending on what happens with, you know, the COVID stuff. I'm done trying to predict that. We do not have a room at the district that's, I mean, I could use a laptop. We could probably make it happen, but it certainly would not be ideal.
Are we limited to county facilities or can we inquire with the city of Bloomington?
So we can certainly inquire with the city.
Okay.
Yeah. I know the city council chambers, more cavernous than this room, but city council chambers would be an option. I'm not sure what other rooms that the city has set up for that, but we can
The
certainly
room we
inquire.
used to meet in can be hybrid. I'm in another group that meets in the McCluskey room.
Okay.
It's also a hybrid setup.
I was going to say the CBU has a meeting room as well. I'm not sure of its capabilities, but I imagine it's been outfitted.
But I mean, I can certainly inquire at the county and the city about what rooms are set up to do that and availability for September 15th, if you'd like me to do that.
Alternatively, is it premature to decide that now? Would it be better to postpone it to closer to the date?
Well, that's why I say you know, we're 5 months out. Hopefully nothing changes between now and then. But like I said, I'm kind of done trying to predict that stuff. And you know, it's also highly possible that we could just have a strictly in-person meeting, depending on what concerns or precautions are in place at that time.
I think maybe in the interest of being conservative, let's try to reserve a room now so that we have one. At the very least, I'm of the opinion it would be easier to change rooms than to change dates. Is that agreed upon by head nods? Yeah. Yeah, I think any room in proximity to this one, if you have a list, do you have, Tom, a list of rooms that are equipped for hybrid meetings?
I do have one at the office. I
Okay,
can't
right.
rattle it off the top of my head.
Okay.
But yeah, but availability, I'd have to check on.
Okay. Let's have a motion for that, if we could.
I would move that we find an alternate meeting room that could do the hybrid meeting for us. September 15th meeting day.
Beautifully moved. Is there a second?
I second that motion.
All right, there's a motion and a second to find another meeting room for the September 15th meeting that's virtually equipped. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? All right, motion carries unanimously. We will do so. Thank you, Tom. All right, that takes care of our general orders, and we can go on to new business. The first item of which is the, excuse me, District 5-year plan reporting support. This is something that was started at the joint meeting last week in the interest of having a regular feedback from the district about progress on the 5-year management plan goal and objective implementation. So I'll introduce it by saying that my thoughts were to put together just a general reporting form that covers all of the items in the 5-year management plan that have reportable content on a periodic basis. So that way the district can basically have a field for each goal and objective at the time or frequency specified, where it can either check a box or enter a value or have something to that effect. So that it's not a burden on the district to either draft the thing or spend a lot of time reporting, but to be able to have the support of knowing from the CAC what it would like to see and the format to see it in. So there we can open that discussion. I would be interested in participating in creating such a document, and I'm interested in thoughts.
I think it's a fantastic idea. A repeated issue that I've observed in working on comprehensive plans, sustainability plans with the city, with the county, et cetera, is that there are usually not mechanisms built into the plans for that kind of accountability and of reporting. So, you know, it kind of alleviates the potential of this syndrome of plans to go sit on shelves to die. And since we put all this time and all these committees and all these volunteer hours into drafting this plan in support of the district, that ensuring that things are implemented along the lines as framed seems like a worthy step in the process.
Great, thank you.
It's much like a contractor who's building a house takes a sum of money as stages of the building process are completed. That way you can really gauge how your process is going.
That's a good point.
I'd also note that that kind of accountability metric is promoted explicitly by the American Planning Association. They actually have a guide to making different types of long-term plans, comprehensive plans, sustainability plans, and best practice in those listed, at least as stated as of 2016, 2017, having these as best practices is pretty standard. So, I mean, I can actually pull up that and send it to the group if we want to use that as a model.
I was just going to ask if you had a good reference for that. Yeah, for sure. I would be very interested in seeing that.
I have two items. The first one, is there what sort of a time management software for reporting hours of work is used at the district, Tom?
I'm sorry, say it again.
What's the time management software used at the district for like reporting hours of work?
Well, because of the various facilities and the lack of technical ability at some of those locations, most of it is done on timesheets or time cards manually and then submitted to the controller on a biweekly basis for payroll to be processed. And then we just use a standard accounting software to process that payroll.
Okay, because a lot of our means of achievement or things we need to achieve our goals involves staff hours. So measuring that maybe in our time cards would be a good option as well.
Possible. I'd have to, the time card, probably not. The time sheets, which are manually filled out, have a space for, you know, activities or comments, which at this point generally are just used like I will make a note of this meeting because the hours I will put down for today are much more than my normal day. Because we'll be here till 6:15 or 6:30, and that's, so I'll put CAC meeting so that Kathy knows when she processes the payroll why I had those extra hours. But at any rate, that space is there, and there might be some ability to say that 2 hours of this day was devoted to rebranding or apartment recycling or something to that effect.
Thank you. And then to build on this, the creation of a forum, I'm wondering if this would, this might be a good time to form a special committee towards making resources for the 5-year plan reporting support item. think it's definitely worth our effort outside of meetings to do that. I'll make that a motion.
I second that motion.
Sorry, there's a motion and a second on the floor to establish a district reporting resource creation committee. Is there any discussion?
Yeah. What about 5-year plan reporting committee or, yeah, I guess it doesn't matter the title.
Yes, okay, I'm sorry. If you want to, you can also just state the motion as you want to verbalize it rather than
Okay.
when I try to interpret it.
A motion, the CAC forms a special committee for tracking progress on the 5-year plan and helping support with the district employees for reporting of their efforts.
Excellent, thank you.
I second.
All right, there's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
What parameters do you think that we might be looking at for that?
As far as what we'll be doing or for district employees?
Yeah, I mean, are we looking to say, okay, district, in 6 months, you need to tell us what you decided to do about your anaerobic digester, and 1 year, what you're gonna do to purchase it, 1.5 years, when's it coming, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I think that could be discussed as we form the committee, but for now, it's just sort of a special committee to discuss the 5-year plan and the progress. Someone to have a line of communication with the district employees and to provide support where needed to help with making a reporting form or whatnot. I guess it's more of a support role for the district employees.
Yeah,
It sounds like you're recommending almost a committee specifically for accountability, filling the gaps where the district committees may not be able to, where they could use support.
Yeah, just something to bolster intercommunication with the district staff.
to make sure the wheels are rolling.
Yeah, absolutely.
If I may, Andrew, I apologize. I didn't write it down. Do you recall the wording you used for the motion initially? Because I want to make sure that this discussion is relevant to that motion, because Mason, what you suggested would be more of an amendment to the motion. I want to make sure that we're discussing a specific item.
Yeah, my motion was to form a special committee for the CAC to provide support for the 5-year plan for the district employees and to foster communication between the committee and the board and employees.
Okay, so it's
Not
not,
longer than.
it's right, it's not exclusively, because what I wish I'd written it down,
Do you want
but
me to read what I?
if you wrote it, that would be
Okay.
fantastic. Thank you.
Manley motioned the CAC form a special committee to track progress on the 5-year plan and create a support network for the district employees on their efforts.
Yes.
Okay.
I love that.
Thank you so much, Lily. Yes, so I think, Paul, also to your remark, it would be you had mentioned it was the parameters. The parameters are exclusively the 5-year plan. So it's going to be just the goals and objectives that are
Right.
specified there and exclusively for the reporting of them. Except at the end, there was a bit about having a support network for the district's staff. How would you envision that being part of the committee's activity?
Well, we were discussing the creation of a form, correct? For
Yes.
the district employees to track their hours or their progress on the subjects of the 5-year plan. That could be one of the things that we create as a support.
Okay, Ryan?
If we create such of a thing.
Okay.
Would that not also have to be something that the board would say, yeah, we're gonna use this?
I think it would definitely be wise to at least pass by the executive committee first, see if they want to approve it and or forward it to the board. That would definitely be part of the process. And actually, Mason, if I may, I know Ryan had a thought to share just before that. If you still have it. If not, I can return.
The question actually would be more directed to Tom here, because this seems like an administrative management kind of intervention. And I don't know that if this is a policy governance situation that we can actually request that mode of management from you.
Well, I mean, I guess I would start by saying that, I mean, my recollection from the joint meeting was that, I mean, the board seemed to be in favor of looking at, a way to track progress and, looking at the timelines established in the plan and where we are in that process and matching up with those timelines. And I think that, so I think that whatever, I mean, if the CAC wants to take the bull by the horns, start a committee and start putting that together or figuring out how that will work. I think the board will be receptive to, to whatever is developed. They may, I think that it's something that they should see and that they agree with the format or the layout or what it is that we're tracking, and they may want some tweaks to it, but I think that they would be receptive to it. And I think that, if it's something that the CAC and the board want to see, then, staff will do what they can do to accommodate that.
Well, then I'll amend my proposition to say pending approval and support from the board of directors as well as administration.
I'll second that amendment.
I just want to make one comment and make sure that we're not adding work for the district employees, adding an additional form that they have to fill out just to do the work that they're already expected to do.
I mean, there's going to be some additional, to staff, but to the extent, we'll have to kind of see what we put together. And, if it's just a matter of making, I'm filling out my timesheet, making a note that 2 hours of the day went to this, that's not that big of a deal. We're not asking you to complete 2 timesheets, one for reporting purposes and one for getting paid. So, we'll just have to see where it goes and what kind of, involvement or additional work or record keeping it would be from staff. And like I said, we'll, do what we can do to accommodate it, and we'll just have to see where that goes, and maybe make some give and take a little bit on both sides to make it happen and something that's useful and works for everybody.
For procedure, I'm going to note that there is a motion and a second on the floor to amend the main motion to add that it's pending the board of director approval. Is there any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed? All right, the amendment carries. We return to the main motion, and Lily has a remark.
Yeah, it was my understanding from the meeting last week that this was more, not that we would be creating specific tasking for specific employees, but reminding that, hidden on page 32, the district plan shows that we should be reaching out to 3 reuse organizations a month. And then that could be something that the district, Tom or whoever he would delineate, could see to get done. Not that we would be holding Tom specifically accountable, or Elisa or anyone, because I think you're right. We don't know what anyone has to do on a day-to-day basis, and that is perhaps beyond our purview.
So perhaps part of the amendment would be to have a fleshed out proposal for the board before it's actually approved.
In this case, I'll say
Or
that
unless that's just assumed.
The main motion pending is just to establish a CAC subcommittee to discuss these topics. So I think that that's still a reasonable motion. And I think that if there is this much discussion to have, then it's worthwhile to potentially establish that and determine which members want to participate. And then the result of that would be what's presented to the board for their approval, or even back to the CAC first for its feedback before presenting it to the board. But in addition to that, the impetus was, as Lily mentioned, that what I thought would be practical was really just outlining the metrics that are specified within the 5-year plan goals and objectives. But there can be conversation about how we could also engage with staff on what their capacity is and being cognizant of that. So if we are going to have a discussion, I think that would be exactly what it would be about.
I would just add that, I think that's, yeah, I mean, if you want to establish a subcommittee to do that, that's great. And I think it's just a matter of, bringing to staff, what it is you'd like to see. And then we'll just have to look at, what is, what's the time commitment for staff to do that? What's staff's capabilities? And again, like I said, we'll have to, and some give and take and come up with something that is useful and works for the staff, the board, the CAC.
And I guess I'll clarify, this is by no means an oversight committee. This is a support committee. So maybe I emphasize too heavily that we would be going to the district staff, but I'd like to see it more as like the district staff coming to us like, hey, I need something. Here's something to do if you would like to volunteer and do that. And then just foster communication. In no way is it an oversight committee.
We like volunteers.
Yeah. I think staff would be receptive of having help. I don't know anyone who wouldn't be.
I think a logical follow-up question is who would be, well, perhaps we should determine first if we're going to establish the subcommittee and then determine who is participating. Is there any further discussion on the motion?
I mean, a concern that I have is that it's almost two committees in the sense that one is like, I know we're not calling it administrative oversight, but functionally that's what in some respects it ends up being in terms of tracking and monitoring, whether it's self-reported or not, or easy or nice or not. And then on the other hand, there's the actual plan implementation details that I think are also germane to the board and its decision-making going down the road. Administrative decision-making that we don't necessarily have access to or need access to, and other elements in terms of implementing the plan. So it's like implementing the plan has these other elements. And so I'm here for some of them and not for others. Like there are some things that I'm competent and qualified to advise on and others that I don't have as much experience or time to do. So I would like to be part of this in a general sense, especially regarding implementation, evaluation metrics, and things to do with like the structuration of the process. But in terms of staff engagement and in terms of like staff analytics and management, that's not something that I personally have time or interest in.
Noted, thank you. Is there any other discussion?
Is it worth deciding when this subcommittee will meet now, or should we just do that outside of this space?
I think that would happen following the decision to establish the subcommittee and determining its constituent members, and then those members can make that decision.
All right.
Thinking now only about Ryan's last remark about giving definition to the subcommittee. I would say I will move to amend the main motion such that it only relates, the subcommittee's activity only relates to determining reporting metrics and, gosh, you know what, scratch that. That's not going somewhere promising. But what I would like to do is try to take into account the distinction that Ryan makes to ensure that the direction of the subcommittee is cohesive with what the CAC collectively thinks is the right way to go.
I would say I'm more inclined to, maybe I framed everything wrong, but I'm more inclined to go with Ryan's vision of what a committee would be rather than sort of management and oversights and engagement with the district employees.
Ryan, if I may, do you have a clear way to form the thought that you expressed into a parallel or analogous motion to Andrew's?
I move to amend the motion that's on the floor.
Mhm.
To read instead that the CAC will form a subcommittee to create a accountability and implementation process for guiding the evaluation of the implementation of the plan.
Seconded.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
Are we going to, if we approve this motion, are we going to strike the original?
Yes. This would be an amendment to the original motion.
Is there going to be an initial point person between the district employees and the subcommittee? And if so, who's that going to be?
Could you say that one more time? Is there going to be a point person?
Who's going to be the liaison between this subcommittee and the district employees?
I see.
He is.
I'm just asking regarding like who ought to be that person?
Right.
Should it be the person who created this group, or should it be someone?
I think that might be out of order for this motion. I think that would also be subsequent to the creation of the subcommittee to determine how it relates to the district.
That's fair.
So let me. All right, so is there any other discussion on the motion to amend the main motion?
Second.
Okay, so seeing none, those opposed say aye. I'm sorry, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Those opposed? Sorry, I didn't mean to make that really confusing. Okay, so that motion carries. The motion is amended. This is now the main motion. Is there any further discussion on that motion? Seeing none, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, so the motion carries. The CAC will have a subcommittee to, I'm going to paraphrase, establish best practice guidelines for the implementation of the 5-year management plan. And I think subsequent motions could involve determining the members of, probably the most logical next steps, determining the members of the subcommittee who can then discuss their meeting time and relationship to the district point person. Maybe we can even just do that as a general discussion. I don't know that we need to move who's on the committee right now, but what is the general interest and participation? So Ryan and Andrew both expressed interest. Are there any other members who would like to participate?
I won't have the time.
Duly noted.
Too much.
Sorry, I would like to participate.
Okay. Mason is interested in participating and I will be involved as well. Are there any other members? All right. Seeing none, I'll move that the subcommittee consists of members Ryan Conway, Andrew Manley, Mason Greenberg, and myself, Joseph Linnea. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you. There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Very good. That motion carries. We have our 4-person subcommittee of Ryan, Andrew, Mason, myself. And I will propose that we decide offline when the best meeting time is and that in our initial meeting, we establish, Tom, please.
I will check with our legal counsel to see applicability of the open door law to the subcommittee. There are some instances like, our board has an executive committee that's only 3 of the members. It's not a majority, but it is subject to the open door laws because it's a standing committee established by the board. So I know this isn't a standing committee, but I do want to make sure, I'll check with our legal counsel. I want to make sure that the committee moves forward with meetings and so forth in accordance with the open door.
I appreciate that. Thank you, Tom. So prior to determining when we will meet, we will plan to hear back from, I will plan to hear back from Tom, if that works for you, Tom, if you can let me know directly, if we're subject to the open door law or not, which would require us to provide notice and distribution of the agenda for the general public and a publicly accessible virtual session as well. Okay. That brings us through our first item of business, which was a very rousing and good one. And unfortunately, it was one of three, which we're clearly not going to have time for. But I think we can proceed to the second one, which is the district rebranding effort. Yes, we also have two members who are in need of moving on to another event and are unable to continue attending. So thank you both Mason and Andrew for your participation. And I will see you either at the next meeting or in our subcommittee meeting.
How does this affect our quorum?
We
Yes.
still have quorum with their departure. We have, please, Ryan.
I was just gonna say, and thank you and nice to meet you, Mason.
So we do presently have 12 total members active and serving, and we have 7 present. Yes. So we are still within quorum and can do business and make decisions. So the next item of business is the district rebranding effort. Similarly, hopefully everyone's had the opportunity to get caught up on that in the management plan, but if not, very briefly, the district's current brand is Go Green District, and the logo is, I can
Marty
pull
Marshall.
up the website.
That would be good.
So it's in the top left corner of this page. So the rebranding effort is mostly about changing the message of the district from something that is presently do the right thing and help the earth to something that is more urgent and responsibility focused about the planetary situation that we're in and the need to actively address it through waste management as an important tool. So there was a proposal when the plan was being drafted to potentially crowdsource it, just to get general public participation. At the joint meeting, we discussed that that would be a slower method than directly contracting it to like a branding agency. But there's also an interest in having buy-in and participation as well. So this is an opportunity for us to discuss how we would like to proceed, or advise the district rather to proceed with the rebranding process.
Well, I hope we can come up with something better than B1G. for Big Ten.
I think we can.
It's different.
Please, yes.
And I apologize. I didn't think of this. It's probably something that would have been good to bring up at the joint meeting, but I've wondered if maybe it would make sense to form a committee that would have CAC staff and board representation on it. And have that committee discuss, what direction, what viewpoint, where do we want the district's brand? What do we want it to be? What do we want it to say? Where do we want it to lead people? And then that way all three groups are represented. You have liaisons to go back to the whole staff, committee, board. Hey, did anybody object to going in this direction? And still not the swiftest of processes, given our meeting schedules, but at least that allows input from the three vested groups in doing this. Just a thought.
That strikes me as a good
It's
idea.
a good thought.
Yeah, my only concern would just be the scheduling that you mentioned, but I mean, it is what it is. I think it's worth going through the scheduling limitations to be able to have the, excuse me, involvement of all three of those parties.
Is there a
Yeah.
time frame, Tom, that you're looking at for this to be completed? 4 years.
Well, and off the top of my head, I don't know if there's a specific, on this particular objective, if there's a specific time frame outlined in the plan. But
There is.
I will say that, in anticipation of this happening, we have money budgeted this year to do new signage at all the facilities. Still have some money, obviously, there would be some changes to the website that would need to happen. And then, potentially, change business cards, letterhead, literature, and we have money budgeted this year to do that. So,
I will note to your remark, Tom, I have the management plan up as well, which I will switch to the share of.
Don't everybody hit me because I don't have it memorized.
Tom, it's only 8 pages of goals and objectives. So this one is goal number 3 for the educational portion, and that is the rework the Go Green brand with the responsibility focused language. And the timeline for this one is targeted to complete by year 1. And the reason is that because there are so many other 5-year plan goals and objectives, it would make sense to have the rebranding done at the onset of it and then push for all of these other initiatives. And we already redid the website, so it could benefit from being under the new brand banner as well. So the sooner the better. It's kind of the answer.
So easy, a child can do it.
I'll get my son right on that.
If he's helping good at it, then sure. So is there any further discussion, particularly on Tom's proposal for establishing a subcommittee?
I move to form a CAC subcommittee. And I don't, I'm sorry, like Tom described it, and I'm sorry, I don't have the wording ready. Could you please help reword?
Well, I mean, the suggestion was, and again, I guess I can speak for staff. I can't speak for the board, but was to have, a committee that would, have a couple of CAC members, a couple of staff members, a couple of board members, or whatever the makeup wants to be, but we have all 3 bodies represented. And have them focus on the rebranding and then report back to the CAC, to the board and staff, what direction we're looking at going.
Okay, so I would make that motion that we have the subcommittee in order to help the board and CAC members collaborate and the district collaborate in order to help move our branding process forward and report back to the CAC. A little messy is the wording there.
I think I would only add that the staff be included in that list.
Yes, thank you.
And
The
then that would,
district staff.
that would complete, yep, that would complete the motion. So there's a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Could you read the motion?
If the secretary would be so kind.
Edwards moved to form a subcommittee representing the CAC board and district staff to collaborate to move the branding process forward and report back to the CAC.
I'll second that.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? I had a thought I was going to share that.
Yeah, I think this will be a good opportunity for the kind of a little bit of an in-depth collaboration that needs to help with building, a stronger communication brand, for the brand. Much more effective space for doing that. Kind of a formal meeting setting.
I think, yeah, I agree. And I think my only question would be the process for establishing it. Would that be something that, Tom, you reach out to the board and staff on for determining members? or
Well, I already have
participants?
a pretty good idea of who the staff representatives would be.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
when do you want to start?
Well, it's not just me. So, but, yeah, I mean, I could reach out to the board. I think, given how fast they do or don't move, You and I probably should also plan on bringing this up at the next executive committee meeting with the executive committee. My guess is odds are that one or two of them will in all likelihood be the board representatives, given time constraints and who has time. But that would be the place to start with the board.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So I think that's worth knowing for affirming the motion should it pass. Is there, so I didn't see any other discussion. Is there any more thoughts?
I am wondering, the new staff position is kind of related to this effort as well. Is that correct? Is it important that that person be a collaborator in that? Like, is it important that that be filled?
I mean, from my perspective, I mean, there's two opposite schools of thought on that. One is that you bring somebody in and have them help guide where it goes, or you decide what you want to do, and then you go bring that person in to get you there.
Thank you.
So there
I
is.
guess, again, if this motion passes, this is another something that we have to take to the board before it's actually implemented.
It would be,
If you want board participation in it.
Yeah.
yes. Yeah, it would be more of Tom would reach out to the board / Tom and I to get a participant of this subcommittee. Sounds like it's asking a lot, but-
With the board, we'll take whatever
Yeah,
we can get.
yeah.
Right.
You know, they're busy people, and we'll, take whatever participation we can get from any of the members.
I do want to interject with, gosh, forgive me, I'm not going to remember the Roberts Rules terms for it. I think it's a privileged motion that there are only 8 minutes remaining in our meeting. We could potentially extend the duration of the meeting, should we so choose, or plan not to, and then just discuss according to the time remaining. So I want to provide the opportunity for anyone to move if there's an interest in extending the duration of the meeting.
My fifth parking meter for an hour 45.
So seeing none, I think we'll continue the discussion and plan to conclude at our scheduled end time, which brings us back to our main motion, which is pending that we establish the subcommittee between the district board, staff, and CAC members. I don't think there was any more discussion, but I do want to provide one last opportunity. Seeing none, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed?
I abstained because my parking meter was an hour.
Got it. So that,
Is this a vote on extending the meeting or on the motion?
on the main motion to establish the subcommittee.
Okay,
Nelson, that was a vote on the
So
participating in a subcommittee for the
Establishing the
rebranding or to establish participation.
So
Not
if
on
you-
extending
if
the
you want
meeting.
to say yes or no, I think.
You can still abstain, but it was not about the extension of the meeting.
I like to stand down.
the motion does still carry,
Stain and everything.
it does still carry with six
With 6
approving
minutes to go.
votes. So we are at the 50%.
That means you guys could favor.
So we will have a subcommittee involving the staff, CAC, and board. And Tom and I will reach out to the board, and Tom will reach out to staff. Are there any CAC members present who would like to participate in the subcommittee?
I'd be interested in that.
Okay,
If I can find the time.
any others? Participants in the subcommittee, the collective rebranding subcommittee between the stakeholders. I'll also include myself. And I will move, well, any others? So seeing none, I will move that Ryan Edwards, Ryan Conway, and myself, Joseph Winia, form the CAC portion of the subcommittee. And I will also reach out to other members who are absent to determine their interest and participation. There's a second.
I would just caution you that if a majority of the CAC is participating, that is a quorum, and
Right.
then everything is subject to the open door law.
Right. Duly noted. So that is the motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second.
I'm the second wheel today.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? All right, that motion carries. I will send an email to the members who are absent, and Ryan Edwards, Ryan Conway, and myself will participate in the CAC portion of this subcommittee, pending board and district participation as well.
Well, and I would just say, obviously, we can't commit the board to anything.
Right.
We can ask, but, and if there's no more board members available, or there's not interest in the board participating, the CAC, and barring board objection, the CAC and staff can take it and run.
Okay, so barring board objection then, rather than their participation.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Very good. I think we can conclude that item of new business. That does bring us to the new staff position for the district, which Ryan Edwards just made reference to. I think I will, for the sake of the time in this meeting, just introduce that idea. I don't know that we'll be able to discuss it, but there is consideration and interest from the board for approving a new or creating a new position to assist with the implementation of the 5-year management plan. Is that an accurate description of the role that it would entail?
Well, that, I mean, more specifically, pursuing some of the goals and objectives, specific goals and objectives
Okay.
that are in there.
Yeah, I would say that the interest verbalized at least was around waste reduction efforts and engagement with like administrative and institutional type entities. So there was also mention at the joint meeting about potential CAC participation in the job description for that. So that was what I wanted to present in this item of business, was the CAC's input in that process. So with 3 minutes remaining to the end of our normal scheduled time, if anybody has a particular burning thought they want to share to put in everyone's minds before we part. we could
That
do
sounds
that.
like more than a 3-minute discussion. Perhaps we should table that until the next meeting.
I would, there is still plenty to discuss and do before we would be in a position to create and advertise a new job opening.
Would you like to make?
I
a
would
motion?
move that we table that until the next meeting.
Second.
I second that motion.
There's a motion, a second, to table this item for the next meeting. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? All right, that motion carries. We will pick that up at our next meeting. And I think at this point, the attendance will also get added to general orders for the next meeting. I do want to quick check Zoom to see if there are any members of the public present.
I don't see any.
Okay. So we don't have public comment. I will take the opportunity for the good of the order, which for those who may not be familiar, it's an opportunity to offer comments or observations about the organization and its work.
I was curious from the joint meeting last week when Vic Kelson was talking about the solid waste that the sewer.
The anaerobic digester
Yeah.
would produce, yeah.
Is the solid waste that they are generating now, is that what would be the settling from the settling ponds and so on that they scoop up and do something with?
Well, no, it wouldn't be from those settling ponds, because this would, because that's a different process than an
Okay.
anaerobic digester. And this would be when you put when you run their wastewater and throw in food scraps and other types of organic waste into that anaerobic digester, obviously not all of the solid breaks down.
Right.
And so you do have a solid byproduct called biosolids that
Okay.
does come out at the end of that anaerobic digestion process. And that's what he's referring to. And it is something that can be landfilled, but it also can be used as a soil amendment or a fertilizer or an agricultural applications, and that is regulated by the state. And Andrew Manley actually used to do that for item. And if you have more specific questions about how that's permitted and.
Well, I was
handled,
wondering
he'd
that
be your man.
if it was going to be much different than on the farm where we compost manures and so on and spread it on the fields. And you have to let it compost really good so you don't get salmonella and stuff like that.
Yeah, I guess, from a, from the, looking at it from the standpoint of somebody who would be receiving that to put on my crops or in my garden, my understanding is it's a better product, but it is much the same as the materials that come out of those drying beds.
Okay.
Is that,
There,
Ryan may know
Can you
some
restate that?
about
I'm
it.
sorry.
That what comes out of the anaerobic digester from the standpoint of me putting it on my crops or whatever, it's a better product, but it is much the same as what comes out of the drying beds at those wastewater treatment plants.
Yeah, so I mean, and like Andrew mentioned at the joint meeting, the application of biosolids has very specific techniques about getting it into the subsoil.
Yeah.
Because if you use it on things like specialty crops, like that you get at the farmer's market or
Yeah.
blooming foods or whatever, I mean, they have a lot of like pathogens in them from, it's biological waste. But so there are many applications like in conventional farming where it does provide amazing benefits. So like on all the big cornfields that we're growing for like biodiesel and stuff,
Right.
while we're doing that, yeah, get them free fertilizer. But I mean, it's also what mix of our overall agricultural profile can and or should be devoted to that type of agriculture, and how much do we want to support with other alternatives like high quality composts that we use for the organic farms that are in town and that we use for most specialty crop, whether they're organic or not.
well, my big thought with all that was how are we getting rid of, if they are, heavy metals and things that would potentially be harmful.
I'm actually going to interject here since we are 2 minutes over our meeting time and we did not vote to extend the meeting.
Yeah.
And as a point of order, this wouldn't qualify as the good of the order, but if you would like to discuss it, that would be something to add to the agenda.
Yeah.
Like I mentioned at the beginning, and we can bring that up at the next
Yeah,
meeting.
that's just something that's been going through my mind since that meeting. And I think it deserves some discussion and looking at and see what we can do to better, if anything, et cetera. Just what's the process?
Duly noted. I will add that to next month's meeting
All right.
agenda. Thank you for the question. For the good of the order, I do want to very briefly mention that I appreciate everyone coming, and it was really good to have all of the engagement today. So thank you all for being here.
Glad the traffic cooperated.
Indeed. So just a reminder, our next regular meeting is Thursday, May 19th at 5:15 p.m. here in the same room, the Nat U Hill courtroom in the county courthouse. And if there's no objection, this meeting will adjourn.
I second.
Since that's not an objection, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.